So, like everybody else, I want to talk about Bill Maher and his use of the N word. It was inappropriate, but I don't think it required all the rhetoric that has come around it. I do like the fact that there's a lot of people who think it's a good thing from the standpoint that it creates a dialogue. I'm a strong believer in what Lenny Bruce had to say about words, particularly words of power. And that particular word is a very powerful word. It's an incredibly strong word, and it shouldn't be. None of the words used to hurt or inflict or represent hate should have power. They should not be such that if they're used, the power continues. And I believe that we need to find a way to stop that. Sometimes usage is how it's done. What bothers me about that particular word in some ways is that, and the best example I can think of off the top of my head is Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn. Can't tell you how many times the word is used in his book, but it is. And I know a lot of people find it offensive, but from a historical point of view, it was a word that was common and used. Was it hurtful at the time? Yes. Was it derogatory at the time? Yes. Were the people that used it either uneducated or ignorant or stupid? Yeah, probably. Even today, people that use it are either ignorant or stupid. I classify those two categories because an ignorant person that uses it doesn't know any better. And you might be able to educate him. A stupid person already knows that he shouldn't use the word, but uses it to hurt anyway. But you also have to deal with people who do use the word with each other, and it is used as an endearment. It is used at times as a challenge. Um, for me, there is a direct effect, although I am white, because there's a book I wanted to write, and I can't, um, because it will use the word. In fact, the book has a variation of that word in its title. In fact, it is that. That's its title. And it's that title because there's a lot of meaning that goes in to that word, both negative and positive, believe it or not. But I can't write the book. I'm capable of writing it. I write books. That's what I do. But I'm not allowed to write that book because of that word. So I thought I would take a few minutes and read you the last page of the book. Now, the last page of the book would use the word, but I'm not going to. I'm going to use the N word in its place. It doesn't work, and it shouldn't, but it'll give you a feeling for that last page. And maybe somewhere there will be someone who will hear it and go, maybe that book should be written. And then maybe I'll get it written. But certainly not on my own, because I am white, and because in society today, I couldn't get it published. Well, I could self publish it, but the amount of negativity that would come out of it would be far exceed the value of the book itself. You're going to see me look off here now because I'm going to read this off my monitor. I did not print this out. It's on my monitor, it's on my machine, and my machine only. The title of the book is The N Word with an A at the end. And this is the epilogue. The curtains had parted, revealing the stage, and as the men seated were exposed by the spotlights, the audience broke into applause. Bandele Benmongo was seated with three others. It was a group of the best scientific minds of the day. The scientific exposition had brought a far-reaching crowd. Many had come to hear what Bandela had to say about the future. He was the introductory speaker. Bandela stood and approached the podium. A spotlight shone on him. "Ladies and gentlemen," he opened up, and then from the third row in towards the back, a man stood up. His thin and disease-racked body hid the identity of Silas Warrington. He shook as he raised his fist. "What are you doing up there, N-word? You should be back in shackles in a shanty behind my house." Bandela looked at the man, who was now in the spotlight. He barely recognized his previous owner. Pity briefly passed over him, and then he saw the hatred in Silas's eyes. He looked at his wife, Mariana, and he smiled. It was time to defeat this ghost. It is time to defeat this ghost from the past. Bandela straightened from the podium and stood at its side. As a man of letters and science, I tend to ignore the use of non-words. When an ignorant man calls me a N-word, I can forgive him because of his ignorance. He wasn't raised better to speak better. But when an educated man uses such words, I can only assume that although he's educated, he must be a stupid man. Such a man needs to be educated again, and so I shall take the time here to educate you. "I don't think no—" "Silence!" shouted Bandela. The audience sat in silence. Silas looked around for support and saw that he had none. He stood in silenced surprise. Bandela nodded. "It is true I was born in Africa. I was captured by slavers who bound me and brought me to this country against my will. I was sold several times on the auction block, and when I escaped, the Civil War had started. I have often wondered if I was the cause." The audience laughed, and Silas seemed to shrink. "I survived as a slave." Bandela's voice grew stronger and louder. "I fought in that tragic conflict, and I survived. Afterwards, I found the woman I loved, and we married and survived. I educated myself. I worked hard, and my wife gave me 4 children. I became a man of letters and science, and now I thrive." The N-word with an A. "You're damn right. I was that N-word with the A, and I am damn proud of that. Because without the N-word with an A, you and your people would have perished long ago. In the future, my descendants will look back upon me with pride and dignity. If you have any descendants, I suspect they will rather forget you existed." Bandela smiled at Mariana, another ghost from the past defeated. Marina smiled back, and Bandela lit up. But he wasn't done. He looked down on Silas. "Clearly, sir, you are not here to celebrate the achievements of science. I am sure the audience has had enough of you. Sit and be silent, or depart." Silas stared down at the chair and then back at Bandela. He shrugged and slid past the others between him and the aisle. He started up the aisle towards the exit. He looked back and scowled, and then quickly left the auditorium. Bandela returned to the podium and began his speech. Marina smiled and glowed as she watched her husband. Her children were on either side of her, and she felt the chill of joy. Sorry, repeat. Her children were on either side of her, and she felt the chill of her joy. She looked up at Mandela, and she mouthed the N word with an A. I love you. That's the end of the book. It's in rough draft form. I wrote the last epilogue before I actually wrote the book. The book is in some outline form in my head. At this moment, I doubt it'll ever get out. And that's a tragedy. But I'm caught in a society that wouldn't allow me to write it.